today we have a very special guest, the creator of one of the most iconic detectives of all time. His keen powers of observation, logical reasoning, scientific approach to solving crimes, and his memorable catchphrase became synonymous with detective work itself. He is not just a detective, he is a symbol of intellectual ability and critical thinking. We will create together a crime scene full of twists and turns that our audience will be able to solve by the end of this episode. The game is afoot. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle! From a scene in a quaint little village in England to an island anchoring the Pacific. Elementary, my dear Watson! Astrid, how can Sherlock Holmes solve this new character development? Welcome to our podcast, where we delve into the art of deduction and the world of crime solving. In this hypothetical episode, we imagine a conversation with detective fiction pioneer Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, a man of many interests, including the supernatural. We will explore Sherlock Holmes' methodical approach to solving mysteries, but also the role fashion plays in the stories, the fascinating relationship with his loyal companion, Dr. John Watson, and we will tackle a mystery that has captivated minds for decades, the Bermuda Triangle, and ask whether Sherlock Holmes can solve the mysterious disappearances of ships and planes in the region. Sir Arthur, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to discuss my work and the character that has become so beloved.
To kick things off, could you give us a hypothetical crime scenario? Something that would challenge even your brilliant detective, Sherlock Holmes. Alright, dear listeners, it's time for you to put on your detective hats.
On a foggy evening, the local librarian, Miss Eliza Hawthorne, is found dead in her library. The room is locked from the inside, and there are no signs of forced entry. What do you think happened here?
A classic locked room mystery. We must consider all possibilities. Was it suicide or murder? And if it was murder, who could have done it?
Let's introduce some suspects. First up is Mr. Thomas Green, a rival librarian who was envious of Miss Hawthorne's success. Then we have Mrs. Agnes White, an elderly woman who had frequent disputes with Miss Hawthorne over overdue books. And let us not forget young Oliver Reed, a mischievous boy often seen lurking around the library after hours. Each suspect has motive: envy, anger over disputes, or perhaps something more sinister.
Now let's talk about clues found at the scene. There is an overturned chair near Miss Hawthorne's desk and a broken window that seems to have been shattered from the inside out.
Interesting. The broken window suggests a struggle occurred within those walls. But why would someone break a window from inside? It raises questions about whether Miss Hawthorne was trying to escape, or if someone else was trying to enter.
During our investigation, we discovered that Miss Hawthorne had recently come into possession of rare manuscripts that were highly sought after by collectors.
Now we have another layer: the possibility of theft as a motive for murder. Perhaps one of our suspects wanted those manuscripts badly enough to kill for them.
We also find out that Mr. Green was seen arguing with Miss Hawthorne over these very manuscripts just days before her death.
To his potential guilt. However, we must remain cautious. Could he simply be an easy scapegoat?
As we gather these clues and motives, we want to remind our listeners what they need to consider before we reveal the answer.
Indeed. They should think critically about each character's motivations and how each clue fits into their narrative.
Alright, dear listeners, based on all these clues, who do you think is responsible for this crime? Keep thinking as we prepare to review at the end of the episode who committed this heinous act on poor Miss Eliza Hawthorne. Sir Arthur, it's an honor to have you on our podcast. What inspired you to create such a unique character as Sherlock Holmes?
The inspiration for Sherlock Holmes came from various sources. Primarily, I was influenced by my medical studies at Edinburgh University, where I encountered Dr. Joseph Bell, one of my professors. Sherlock Holmes was born out of my fascination with deduction and observation. I wanted to create a character who could solve mysteries through logic and keen insight. His methods were scientific. He relied on evidence, forensic science, and an acute understanding of human behavior.
That's fascinating. So Dr. Bell was a significant influence on Holmes' character.
Absolutely. Dr. Bell was not only a brilliant surgeon, but also a masterful observer. His methods of deduction were remarkable. He could tell things about his patients that they themselves might not even realize. This inspired me to create a character who could apply similar skills to solve mysteries.
My father was a neurosurgeon. That's what he was like. And what was Holmes' personality like?
Holmes is often aloof, emotionally detached, yet deeply passionate about his work. He embodies the Victorian ideal of rationality, but also has a darker side.
What about the role of women in your stories?
In my stories, women often play secondary roles, damsels in distress or love interests for Holmes. However, there are strong female characters like Irene Adler who challenge him intellectually.
Women in my stories are femme fatale or victims, but always central to the plot's complexity. They often rely on intuition and street smarts. My investigations are less about solving mysteries and more about understanding people, what drives them and what they fear. It's about navigating the murky waters of human nature. Sir Arthur, what about justice?
Justice in my stories is often served by the end. Holmes restores order to chaos through his intellect. There's a sense that good ultimately triumphs over evil.
Mine too, but I find justice to be messy and complicated. Sir Arthur, your character Sherlock Holmes is known for his ability to discern truth from deception. In your experience, what are the main signs that someone is lying?
The art of detecting lies is indeed a fascinating subject. While there is no foolproof method, several psychological cues can suggest that someone may not be telling the truth.
Could you elaborate on those cues?
Certainly. One of the first things to observe is body language. When people lie, they often exhibit nervous behaviors such as avoiding eye contact or fidgeting. They may also cross their arms defensively or turn their body away from the person they are speaking to.
Interesting. What about verbal communication? How can speech patterns indicate deception?
Verbal cues are equally important. Liars may provide too much detail in their stories or become overly elaborate in their explanations. Conversely, they might give vague answers or avoid direct questions altogether. A change in tone or speech rate can also signal discomfort.
Are there emotional indicators as well?
Indeed. Emotional inconsistencies can reveal much about a person's honesty. For instance, if someone is recounting a sad event but appears overly cheerful or detached, it raises suspicion. Genuine emotions typically align with the narrative being shared.
So context plays a role too?
Absolutely. The context surrounding the conversation is crucial. If someone's story contradicts known facts, or if they seem overly defensive when questioned, these discrepancies can indicate deceit.
Sir Arthur, one question that often arises in detective stories is whether the guilty person is always the one we least expect. What are your thoughts on this?
That is indeed a fascinating question. In my works, particularly those featuring Sherlock Holmes, I often explore the theme of expectation versus reality. The notion that the guilty party is frequently someone unexpected plays into human psychology and our biases.
Could you elaborate on that? Why do you think people tend to overlook certain suspects?
People have a tendency to form assumptions based on appearances or social status. The unexpected perpetrator often embodies traits that defy our preconceived notions of guilt. For instance, in The Adventure of the Blue Carbuncle, the true criminal is not who one might initially suspect, but rather an individual whose circumstances lead him to commit an act of desperation.
So would you say this technique serves a purpose in storytelling?
Absolutely. It creates suspense and engages readers by challenging their deductive reasoning. By leading them down one path while hiding clues about another character's guilt, I aim to provoke thought and reflection on human nature itself.
Do you believe this concept holds true outside of fiction as well?
Indeed. In real life, investigations can be clouded by bias and assumption. Law enforcement may focus on individuals who fit certain profiles while overlooking others who may seem innocuous. This highlights the importance of thorough investigation and critical thinking, qualities embodied by my character Holmes.
Sir Arthur, you have penned numerous detective stories that have captivated readers for generations. In your opinion, what are the essential elements that make a good detective story?
An excellent question. A good detective story must possess several key components to engage and satisfy its audience. First and foremost, there must be a mystery at its core, something that intrigues both the reader and the detective. The mystery should be complex enough to challenge the intellect, but not so convoluted that it becomes incomprehensible. The detective is crucial. They must be relatable yet extraordinary in their abilities. Readers should find themselves invested in the character's journey as they unravel clues and confront challenges.
Keys of truth. What about the supporting characters and the settings?
They provide depth and can serve as red herrings or valuable allies in solving the case. Each character should have distinct motivations that contribute to the overall plot. The setting can greatly influence a story's mood and tone. Whether it's foggy London streets or an isolated manor house, an evocative atmosphere enhances suspense and immerses readers in the narrative world. Finally, a good detective story must conclude with a resolution that ties up loose ends while still leaving room for reflection or surprise. The resolution should feel earned. Readers should look back at earlier clues with newfound understanding.
From the very first story I studied in Scarlet, it was clear that Holmes and Watson shared a bond that went beyond mere companionship. They were not just partners in crime solving, they were friends who relied on each other's strengths.
Indeed, Holmes' friendship with Watson was built on mutual respect and trust. He never had a single quarrel with him. Their disagreements were always intellectual rather than personal. Their relationship exemplifies how friendships can thrive without conflict.
That's an important point. Their shared love of adventure and solving mysteries certainly brought them closer together. So, what are some key elements that contribute to such a lasting friendship?
Trust is the cornerstone of any strong relationship. Holmes never doubted Watson's loyalty or integrity. This unwavering trust allowed them to face numerous challenges together without fear of betrayal. Communication is essential. Whether it was unraveling a complex case or enjoying a quiet evening at 221B Baker Street, Holmes respected Watson's perspectives and skills as a doctor, while Watson appreciated Holmes' analytical mind. This respect allowed them to grow individually while strengthening their bond.
Sir Arthur, could you share with us your favorite quote and why it resonates with you?
Certainly. One of my favorite quotes is from my own work. When you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. This line encapsulates the essence of logical reasoning and deduction that I so often employed in my stories featuring Sherlock Holmes.
That's a powerful quote. Can you elaborate on why this particular sentiment is significant to you?
The process of elimination is fundamental not only in detective work, but also in everyday life. It encourages critical thinking and rational analysis. In an age where misinformation can spread rapidly, the ability to discern truth through methodical reasoning is more crucial than ever.
How did this philosophy influence your writing process?
My approach to writing mysteries was heavily influenced by this principle. Each story required meticulous planning and an understanding of human psychology. By eliminating false leads and focusing on what remained plausible, I crafted narratives that challenged readers to engage actively with the text. It was essential for me that they felt like detectives themselves.
Has this quote had any impact on your personal life outside of writing?
In my personal endeavors, be it medicine or spiritualism, I've found that applying logical reasoning has led me to more profound insights. Whether I was investigating medical anomalies or exploring spiritual phenomena, this quote served as a guiding light in navigating complexities.
It's fascinating how a simple statement can hold so much depth across various aspects of life.
Indeed. I hope listeners find value in applying logic and reason in their own lives.
As someone who straddled both literature and medicine so successfully, what message would you like to leave with our listeners regarding the intersection of these fields?
I would emphasize that literature can serve as a powerful tool for education and awareness in medicine. By weaving accurate medical knowledge into engaging narratives, we can inspire curiosity about health issues while fostering empathy towards those affected by them.
Sir Arthur, it seems that writing a compelling detective story requires both creativity and careful planning. Moving on, let's unravel some mysteries surrounding the Bermuda Triangle. This region in the Atlantic is notorious for the mysterious disappearances of ships and planes. Some attribute these incidents to supernatural phenomena, while others suggest more rational explanations. Sir Arthur, what do you think?
The Bermuda Triangle. A fascinating subject indeed. As a writer of detective fiction, I am inclined to approach this mystery with logic and reason rather than superstition.
Numerous incidents have been reported in this area. What do you think could be the explanation for such occurrences?
In my experience with Sherlock Holmes, one must always consider all possible explanations before jumping to conclusions. In many cases attributed to the Bermuda Triangle, factors such as human error, navigational challenges, and environmental conditions could play significant roles.
Many experts believe that human error is the main cause of aviation and maritime accidents. In addition, environmental factors such as sudden storms or underwater topography can create dangerous conditions.
Precisely. The ocean is an unpredictable entity. It can be both beautiful and treacherous. Just as Holmes would analyze every detail at a crime scene, we must examine these incidents closely to uncover potential rational explanations.
Some theories suggest that paranormal activities or even aliens play a role in these disappearances. How does this fit with your investigative philosophy?
While I have dabbled in spiritualism myself, I believe that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Without substantial proof supporting supernatural theories, they remain mere speculation, much like how Holmes would dismiss unfounded conjectures when solving a case.
So if Sherlock Holmes had the task of solving the mystery of the Bermuda Triangle today, how would he go about it?
Holmes would undoubtedly gather all available data regarding each incident, weather reports, eyewitness accounts, ship logs, and meticulously analyze them for patterns or commonalities. He would seek logical explanations grounded in reality, rather than succumbing to sensationalism.
In essence, then, can Sherlock Holmes solve this mystery?
Sherlock could indeed solve the mystery of the Bermuda Triangle by applying his methodical reasoning and critical thinking skills to separate fact from fiction and uncovering rational explanations behind each incident.
Sir Arthur, your stories are rich with detail. how do you think fashion contributes to character development in your narratives?
Fashion is an essential element in my storytelling. It serves not only as a reflection of the time period, but also as a means of characterization. For instance, Sherlock Holmes's iconic deerstalker hat and Inverness cape are not merely clothing. They symbolize his unique identity and intellect. The way characters dress can reveal their social status, personality traits, and even their moral compass.
That's fascinating. Can you elaborate on how fashion helps set the scene in Victorian London?
Absolutely. The Victorian era was marked by distinct fashion trends that conveyed much about society. The attire of characters often sets the tone for the story. For example, when I describe Watson in his tailored suits or Holmes in his more eccentric outfits, it immerses readers in the atmosphere of London during that time. The contrast between upper-class elegance and lower-class attire can highlight social issues prevalent in my stories.
You mentioned symbolism earlier. How does fashion symbolize broader themes within your works?
Fashion can symbolize various themes such as class struggle, morality, and identity. In A Scandal in Bohemia, Irene Adler's choice of clothing signifies her independence and cunning nature, challenging traditional gender roles of the time. Her ability to manipulate her appearance reflects deeper themes of deception and intelligence that resonate throughout my stories.
Interesting. Do you believe that fashion influenced plot development as well?
Indeed. Characters' choices in attire can drive plot points or create tension within narratives. For instance, disguises play a crucial role in several tales. Holmes often dons different outfits to gather information without being recognized. This use of fashion not only propels the plot, but also reinforces themes of observation and deduction central to detective fiction.
Sir Arthur, you have explored the realm of both fiction and the unexplained. Is there a particular myth or misconception you'd like to debunk today?
Indeed, I would like to address the myth surrounding spiritualism and its connection to fraud. Many people dismiss spiritualism outright as mere trickery or deception, without considering the genuine experiences that individuals have reported.
That's fascinating. Can you elaborate on why you believe this myth deserves more attention?
Certainly. Spiritualism emerged in the 19th century as a movement that sought to communicate with spirits of the deceased. While it is true that some practitioners engaged in fraudulent activities, using tricks such as sleight of hand or hidden mechanisms, this does not negate the authentic experiences reported by many individuals who sought solace after losing loved ones. I have personally investigated numerous cases where mediums demonstrated remarkable abilities that could not easily be explained away by simple trickery. The emotional impact on those seeking closure should not be overlooked.
So, what do you suggest for those who are skeptical about spiritualism?
I advocate for open-mindedness and critical thinking. It is essential to approach any phenomenon with both skepticism and an openness to possibilities beyond our current understanding. Dismissing all mediums as frauds ignores the profound human experiences tied to grief and loss. Furthermore, scientific inquiry into these phenomena can yield insights rather than outright dismissal. We must balance skepticism with compassion.
Sir Arthur, many aspiring writers and detectives often find themselves in a dilemma. They observe numerous details in their characters and surroundings, but struggle to convert those observations into meaningful deduction. How do you approach this process?
That is indeed a crucial aspect of both writing and detective work. The key lies in systematic observation and logical reasoning. Let me break it down step by step. One must cultivate the skill of keen observation. This means not just seeing what is apparent, but also noticing subtle details that others might overlook. For instance, consider how Holmes observes a person's clothing, demeanor, or even their choice of words. Each detail can provide insight into their character or situation.
Can you give an example?
Certainly. If I observe that a man has mud on his shoes while wearing an expensive suit, I might deduce that he has recently walked through an area under construction, rather than assuming he works there based solely on his attire.
Sir Arthur, if I may ask, which case do you think Sherlock Holmes is most proud of?
That is indeed a fascinating question. While I have penned many adventures featuring Holmes, I would say that he holds a particular fondness for The Hound of the Baskervilles. This case stands out not only because it showcases his unparalleled deductive reasoning, but also due to its atmospheric setting and deep-rooted themes of fear and superstition.
What makes this case so significant in your eyes?
Well, The Hound of the Baskervilles was written after I had seemingly killed off Holmes in The Final Problem. The public's demand for more stories was overwhelming. When I returned to write this tale, it was set in the eerie moors of Devonshire, a perfect backdrop for a mystery steeped in legend. The combination of rationality versus irrationality is something that intrigued both myself and Holmes.
Wait, so Sherlock Holmes' faked death served multiple purposes, both personal and professional. How did your readers react when they learned that Holmes had died?
The reaction was quite intense. Many were distraught. Some even went as far as to express their anger towards me personally. Letters poured in demanding his return. This public outcry made it clear just how much they cherished Sherlock Holmes.
Oh well, sometimes you must take drastic measures to find new paths forward. And you did bring him back in The Hounds of the Baskervilles.
Precisely. In this case, Holmes confronts not just a physical threat, but also the psychological terror that grips those who believe in the supernatural. His triumph over these fears is something he takes great pride in.
It's clear that The Hounds of the Baskervilles holds a special place, not only in his heart, but in yours as well. If you had to distill the essence of what Holmes represents, what would you say is the main message or theme behind his character?
Certainly. Throughout The Hound of the Baskervilles, we see Holmes employing his signature methods: observation, deduction, and logical reasoning. He dissects clues that others overlook and ultimately reveals that the true danger lies not in myth, but in human greed and malice. This ability to unveil truth from layers of deception is what makes him proud. He embodies rational thought amidst chaos.
Kiss of truth. Could you explain in more detail how these themes are expressed in your stories?
Certainly. One of the primary themes is rational thought versus emotional response. Holmes often relies on cold logic and meticulous observation to uncover truths that others overlook. This methodical approach serves as a critique of those who allow emotions to cloud their judgment. For instance, in A Scandal in Bohemia, we see how Holmes's analytical skills are put to the test against Irene Adler's cunning, a reminder that intellect can sometimes be outmatched by human emotion and intuition.
Before we wrap up, if listeners want to delve deeper into your works or learn more about the legacy of Sherlock Holmes, where should they start?
I recommend starting with A Study in Scarlet, which introduces both Watson and myself as narrators of our adventures together. From there, exploring collections like The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes will provide further context into his character development.
And finally, if you could ask Sherlock Holmes just one question, what would it be and why?
That is a fascinating proposition. If I had the opportunity to pose a single question to my esteemed detective, it would undoubtedly be, what is it that drives your insatiable curiosity?
Thank you for sharing such profound thoughts with us, Sir Arthur. Your take on Sherlock Holmes continues to inspire readers around the world. What final thoughts would you like to share with our listeners?
I encourage everyone to embrace curiosity and critical thinking. Whether through literature or science, always seek knowledge and understanding. This is the essence of progress. And remember, there is much more between heaven and earth than we can comprehend.
And now the moment you've all been waiting for. After carefully examining all the clues, the answer lies in understanding human nature and the motives tied to the opportunity. And now, our big reveal.
The murderer is none other than Mrs. Agnes White. Her disputes over overdue books were merely a cover for her jealousy towards Miss Hawthorne's success in acquiring rare manuscripts.
Kiss of truth. Mrs. White broke in through the window during an argument with Miss Hawthorne and, in a fit of rage, committed murder before locking herself back inside. Congrats to all who have mastered the art of deduction. Thank you so much, Sir Arthur. We value wisdom as always. Your perspective encourages us to explore beyond what we can see and understand.
My pleasure entirely. Remember, dear listeners, always keep your mind open to possibilities and look beyond what is presented before your eyes.
And there you have it. Insights from the great detective himself. The truth often lies at the intersection of belief and evidence. True friendship is rare, but it is worth nurturing. In literature, as in life, lifelong friendships like Holmes and Watson's have an unbreakable bond. Spending time together is crucial, whether it's engaging in stimulating conversations, organizing a murder mystery party, or simply playing a board game at home. These moments cement our bonds. As I examine the evidence before us, the scattered papers, the misplaced laptop, and that rather suspicious-looking parrot key, one thing becomes abundantly clear. Someone has stolen Mrs. Watson's prize scones from the kitchen. Sir Arthur, come back! We need you! Do you notice anything peculiar?
Scones, you say? This sounds like a case for my unparalleled deductive skills. Well, there are some flour marks here, and a trail of sugar leading to the door.
There! The crumbs frying from my cameraman's shirt appear to be Mrs. Hudson's scone!
You, sir, have committed a heinous crime against Mrs. Hudson's culinary masterpiece.
But I just ate a leftover muffin. I didn't know it belonged to anyone.
You see, the true criminal is not merely one who steals, but one who lacks respect for baked goods. You must understand that muffins have feelings too.
Exactly! Our thief is not just any common criminal. They are a pastry enthusiast.
Remember, true deduction requires keen observation and logical thinking. Logic will always win over mere speculation.
Until next time, boldly engage with us. Like and subscribe today, because if you don't, how will we ever know who stole Mrs. Hudson's prize scones? And trust me, we would never forgive you for that. Okay, I admit, I ate them. Elementary! A pinch of humor goes a long way. It reminds us not to take life too seriously. Kiss of truth.